Welcome to the Winning Wealth Podcast. On this episode, we had Rod Khleif, our biggest guest on the podcast so far. Rod is an entrepreneur, real estate investor, multiple business owner, author, mentor, and community philanthropist. Rod has personally owned and managed over 2,000 properties. He is the host of the top-ranked real estate podcast, the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast, which has received over 30 million downloads. He's the founder of the Lifetime Cash Flow Academy and author of the #1 best-selling book, How to Create Lifetime Cash Flow Through Multifamily Properties. Excellent conversation. I look forward to you listening to this.
That's me in a nutshell. Your goals too, but maybe we do that after. I don't think we were that close.
All right, so welcome to the pod, Rod Khleif. I've had the privilege of following Rod for 6-7 years now. I mean, he was a huge inspiration for me getting into what I'm doing now in real estate. I've gone to a lot of his live events. He hosts these huge events, ton of stuff online. He's got a great podcast, great book. I've followed all this stuff, learned a lot. So I'm really honored today to have him on the podcast. So
let's be clear too. Rod is our biggest guest so far. So we're fired up to have you, man. This is
wow.
This is huge.
Holy cow. Stop it, guys. Stop it. Stop it.
I'm being honest.
Looking forward to the conversation. So let's start with learning more about your story, right? I know you have a great story. How did you get started in real estate? Let's hear your story.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. That's really, really kind. You made my day, actually, with those kind comments. So I'm an immigrant. I'm a Dutch immigrant, think wooden shoes and windmills. Immigrated this country when I was 6 years old with my brother Albert, my mother Svancha. Ended up in Denver, Colorado. Grew up struggling. I remember we had expired food because we shopped at an expired food store. True story. They had that back then. Drank powdered milk with our cereal in the morning because it was cheaper than real milk. And trust me, it sounds better than it is. And I remember wearing clothes from the Goodwill and the Salvation Army all the way through junior high school till finally I got disgusted and got a job at Burger King, lied about my age when I was 14 because I was tall, and got a job flipping burgers so I could buy my own stuff. And, and I'm sure you've got listeners that had it harder than I did, or maybe even have it harder now with this economic uncertainty we're in. But I knew I wanted more. And luckily, my mom had an incredible work ethic. So she babysat kids so we'd have enough money to eat. And we always had a huge house full of kids. And with her babysitting money, she was a bit of an entrepreneur. So she invested in the stock market successfully in IPOs, and she also invested in real estate. And her first real estate acquisition was the house directly across the street from us. When I was about 14, she paid about 30 grand. And then when I was 17, she told me she'd made $20,000 in her sleep that had gone up to $50,000. And I was like, what? Screw college, I'm getting into real estate. So I went out and got my real estate broker's license right when I turned 18, which you could do back then with education. Since then, they've gotten smart, and to be a broker, you have to have some experience. But I could have opened my own office, and luckily, I was smart enough to go work for another broker. But I was still living at home. And my first year in real estate, I made about 8 grand. My second year, maybe 10 grand. But my third year, I made over $100,000. And that was pretty decent money back in 1980. 43 years ago. So what happened between your year 2 and year 3 that caused me to 10x my income? Well, what happened was I met a guy. I was actually dating his daughter. He was the broker I was working for, that taught me about the importance of mindset and psychology. How 80 to 90% of your success in anything is just that, your mindset and psychology. And I know your show is all about wealth, health, and happiness. And frankly, mindset and psychology ties into every one of those pieces. And so, fast forward to today, I've owned over 2,000 houses I've rented long-term. In 2006, my net worth went up $17 million while I slept. And you might say, wow. And I said, wow. And I got a head so freaking big, I could barely fit it through a door. I thought I was a real estate god. And when that happens, God of the universe has a tendency to give you a nice little beat down. Well, that was 2008 and 9. I lost conservatively $50 million in 2008 and 9. And so what I'm known for talking about on my podcast, I'm blessed to host the largest really commercial real estate podcast in the world now. We exceeded 20 million downloads. And I'm known for talking about mindset and psychology, which is the reason it's been so successful. People don't remember what you say, but they remember how you make them feel. And, I spend a lot of time on that. And, and now I'm blessed to, I own thousands of apartment units. We just went under contract on a screaming deal in San Antonio, literally today. So it's been a crazy couple of days, but, I'm known for talking about mindset and psychology and really, to talk about what it took to have 50 million to lose in the first place And then maybe as importantly, or even more importantly, what it took to recover from that to the success that I'm blessed to have today. So, love to drill down on that a little more with you guys if you want, but however you want to take this.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on that quickly. So what was like specifically, you said you had a pivot there with 2008, 2009, you're in the single family space. What specifically was a learning lesson there that really pivoted your business to go into multifamily?
Well, I had 800 houses when the market crashed, and I had several apartment complexes. It was the houses that pulled me down. You see, I had houses 2 hours north of me, 2 hours south of me, and everywhere in between along the coast of Florida. And so let me give you a quick synopsis of why it burned. Well, first of all, single-family houses, people think, yeah, I'm going to buy a house or two in cash flow. Well, here's the problem. If you've got a house that's cash flowing, say $200-300 a month, a decent cash flow, okay, if you have a vacancy, not only are you going to lose a couple of months of rent typically, but you're going to typically pay $3,000 to $5,000 to turn that thing over. And then you've just lost 2 years of cash flow. Okay. So houses really don't cash flow well. And I had 2,000 of them I had 800 when it crashed. And so here's the things that killed me. In Florida, there's no state income tax. So property taxes are proportionally higher. I had properties in wind and flood zones. So insurance is higher, which both of those things impact cash flow in a big way. But what killed me was the maintenance. If I had to send a maintenance guy to one of my apartment complexes, we stockpile parts, so we've got HVAC parts, plumbing parts, electrical parts, window locks, door locks, all that stuff is just stockpiled there. And then if they're in and out in a freaking hour. Well, if they got to go to a house that's an hour and a half away, they got to go see what's wrong. Every house is different. Then they got to find a Home Depot or a Lowe's where we have an account. And I don't know about you guys, but when Rod tries to fix something, he ends up going to Home Depot more than once. And, maintenance guys, same thing happens. And, so what took an hour at one of my apartment complexes took all day at one of my houses. Now, these 800 houses were C-class houses, okay? So there's A, B, C, and D class. A is the brand new stuff. D is the hood. Stay the hell out of the hood. Ask me how I know. But anyway, so these are C, just a step above D, and it's a tougher demographic. They're harder on the houses. They're older houses, so there's a lot more maintenance. The maintenance killed me, okay? But then the coup de grace, as it were, the final straw was I didn't pay attention to tenant demographics back then. If they had good credit and they had a decent job, I let them rent. They paid a deposit, and that was full month's rent, typically minimum deposit at that time. And so I felt like I was safe. Well, I look back on it, and a lot of my tenants were contractors, plumbers, electricians, drywallers, painters, roofers, and that fell off a freaking cliff in 2008-9. They didn't have work. So it was like the perfect storm. Now, you want to hear what's crazy? I was only at a 30% loan to value. That's all I owed on my portfolio was 30 cents on the dollar, and I still crashed and burned. Now, what else is crazy is that my portfolio apps actually went a little bit upside down. That's how much the values dropped here by the end of 2009 into 2010. It was more than 70%. But anyway, that's why it happened. But, if you'd like, I could chat briefly about the mindset pieces that I utilized to bounce back, really to have it in the first place and to bounce back. Would you like me to touch on some of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that'd be great. I mean, I think the thing is everybody, no matter what it is, whether it's personal adversity or what, everybody's going through some level of adversity, and you don't know. But to have someone come back from such a staggering loss, can you? I mean, not to go through all the mud again, but can you talk us through like how that?
Well, it sucked. Let me just say that it sucked. Okay, it was no fun. But here's the thing. And this applies to whether you haven't started yet, if you're listening and you need to do something. I'm going to tell you, opportunity is upon us, guys. The proverbial shit is hitting the fan. I'm telling you, it's happening right now. There are deals coming out of the woodwork for us right now. We just got like I said, this deal under contract was sold for $26 million 3 months ago. We got it for $20. Okay, to give you an idea. I mean, that's a huge discount. And so, stuff like that's happening. I mean, some people are saying it could be the greatest transfer of wealth we see in our lifetimes that's upon us. Now, I don't believe it's going to happen before the election. I think they're going to drop the rates before the election. But after the election, watch out, man. I think we're going to see a real reckoning. And we've got all this commercial debt coming due. And we can talk about that later if you want to. But back to mindset. So it starts with you got to want it. You got to have a burning desire or a hunger. And so like if you come to one of my boot camps, the first thing we do is goal setting on steroids. Because how do you get anything if you don't know what it is? You got to know what it is you want and why you want it. You got to create that hunger. So, by the way, let me mention this to you. if you haven't done your goals recently, for God's sakes, here's the sad reality. People spend more time planning a freaking Christmas party than they do designing their lives. That's designing your life. So if you're driving, text the word links to 72345 or go to rodslinks.com. At the bottom is my goal setting workshop. I do it every year on New Year's Day. I'll do it again this year coming up. And it's about an hour. Spend an hour planning your freaking life, designing your life. Have your spouse do it. If your kids are over 10 years old, have them do it. It'll be a lot of fun. Again, it's text links to 72345 or go to rodslinks.com. I'm not going to try to sell you anything. Go do your freaking goals because you got to create that burning desire, that hunger. That's the only way you're going to get off your ass and make something happen, or you're going to recover from a loss like I did. You got to create that hunger again. So that's what I did. I reassociated with what I wanted and why I wanted it to get going again. Then you got to make a decision, okay? And I don't mean dip your freaking toe in the water, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. No, I mean it is done. A great analogy for a decision means you're going to attack the island and burn your ships because you're taking their ships home. That's a decision, okay? It's not a wishy-washy sort of thing. You got to decide. See, the Latin root for the word decision means to cut off. So you cut off any chance of escape, it is done. And then once you've done that, you're like a freaking train on a track. You're committed. If you're just thinking about it or you're just interested, you're going to get knocked off track. Motivation will get you started. But that commitment after you make a decision is what's going to bring you home. So you got to make a decision, and then you got to take the first step. Dr. Martin Luther King said, you take that first step in faith, the next step will be revealed, but you got to take it. And, I have a lot of students that are analytical. And if you're analytical and you're listening, you know who you are, and I love you, but you also know you got to check off every single freaking box before you make a move. You can't do that. You got to just have some faith, okay? You got to recognize that, you may not see the whole path. I'll give you a great analogy for this. You can drive all the way across the United States at night with your headlights seeing 60 feet in front of you, and you can make it. You may have some obstacles, but other people have done it before you. And this applies to just about anything you want to do. Certainly multifamily real estate. But you got to take that first step. Otherwise, you're going to have regrets. And, just remember this life is not a dress rehearsal, okay? There was this nurse in Australia, a hospice nurse. She took care of patients when they were about to die. Her name was Bronnie Ware. And she asked him a question, guys. And the question was, do you have any regrets? And she wrote a book about it, something like The 5 Regrets of Dying. You know what the number one regret was? Not living the life I could have lived, living someone else's life, not doing what I know I'm capable of. I can't think of anything worse than that. And so, no regrets, guys. If you're analytical, just make the move. Your family deserves it. Because you've got to push through the fear and the limiting beliefs. So fear, what is fear? F everything and run. I like to think it's false evidence appearing real for sure, because most of what you fear never happens, but it's face everything and rise. You got to go after it. And we'll talk about limiting beliefs for a minute. In fact, I've got my props right here. Hang on 1 second because they're hilarious. So when I immigrated to this country, I didn't speak English, and I got thrown into school. And my mom, proud Dutch woman that she is, thought it'd be a great idea to send me to school in these wooden shoes. These are the actual freaking shoes, okay? Because we found them when we put her in assisted living. And these leather shorts the Germans wear for Oktoberfest. They're the gayest things you've ever seen. But if you're German, I apologize, but you know damn well they're gay. But anyway, so I got my ass kicked, okay? And I found out what bullies were for the first time. And, and then there were bullies on the end of my street, and they'd chase me home, and my mom would chase them off with a fly swatter. True story. So the next day, ass kicking. And so I came up with this belief system that I wasn't good enough. I used to ask myself, how can I show them I'm good enough? Which of course presupposed I wasn't. And a lot of people have these limiting belief systems. And here's the thing you want to remember. There's a reason the acronym for belief systems is BS. Things like I'm not smart enough. I'm not analytical enough. That was another one of mine. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. Again, the acronym is BS because 99% of them are BS. They have no basis in fact, but we believe they're real. So if you have one of these, make sure you drag it out into the daylight. You look at it with your adult rational mind, and it will burn up. I mean, I used to be afraid to raise my hand in front of 10 people in class, and now I speak in front of thousands and thousands of people a year. So, you can burn this BS up, but you've got to consciously bring it out into the daylight and look at it rationally, and then you'll recognize it's BS. I could keep going. I got a few more if you want. But if you want to interject, I am kind of on my soapbox right now. So
Hey, no worries. It's a good soapbox. I love it.
Okay.
I mean,
all right. Well, let's talk about focus then for a minute. You know, the most successful people on the planet have the highest degree of focus. And I'm going to tell you, with the negative crap that's happening in this country, with the censorship on the news, the propaganda on the news, and all the crap that's happening on social media with the same thing, focus is so important because you can get sucked in. We won't even talk about the politics right now. It's just insane what's happening. You don't even know what to believe anymore. And so that's why the goals are so freaking important. You need to have them in front of you. You need to have pictures of your goals in front of you so that you're focused on that, because wherever focus goes, your energy flows. And I'm going to tell you, incredible focus equals incredible success. But here's the thing. Whatever you focus on gets larger, both positive or negative, okay? And so if you're sucked into the politics like I did for a while, my blood pressure literally went up 20 points, you know, you're just not going to accomplish anything. And that's why, you know, your focus is so important. They asked Mother Teresa when she was alive if she was anti-war. She said, no, I'm pro-peace. I mean, you see the analogy. I get people call me and say, hey, how do I get out of student loan debt? I'm like, wrong question. How do you make so much freaking money the debt's irrelevant, right? That's the right question. So your focus is super, super important. And I would also tell you, minimize your distractions, because here's what kills your focus, okay? I don't know about you, but I'll be watching some stupid on Netflix, or even worse, TikTok, and I'll be scrolling through this stuff, and you're making these micro decisions every split second that are killing your focus. And I'm guilty of it as well. You know, it's interesting. I listen to two podcasts, Joe Rogan and Tim Ferriss. And so I get both sides of the aisle, and trust me, they are definitely on either side of the aisle on those two. And I'm definitely personally on one side. I think I've already hinted about that. But the point is, on Tim Ferriss's show, he interviews the best of the best. And by the way, I get excited about my 20 million downloads. I think each of those guys gets that a week on their shows. But anyway, so I listen to Tim Ferriss, and he interviews the best of the best in the world, the best athletes, Michael Phelps, NFL players, NBA players, billionaires like Ray Dalio, heads of the highest, you know, biggest CEOs in the country, Zuckerberg and them, and actors like Jamie Foxx, Ed Norton, Hugh Jackman, Arnold, all them. And he deconstructs their success. It's fascinating, intelligent conversation. But I started to hear a pattern. They almost all meditate. And I'm thinking, what does meditation enhance? Focus, right? Focus is critical, guys. Super, super important. And then the next piece here, especially if you're going to do multifamily real estate, which is what I teach, is you got to play to your strengths. And honestly, it doesn't even matter what you do. You play to your strengths. Your strengths are your greatest assets. Don't try to minimize your weaknesses. Success becomes much faster if you're playing in your strengths and you align, you hire, or you partner for your weaknesses. Because when you're playing in your strengths, you're going to love what you do. And when you love what you do, success is inevitable. I see it in my space because multifamily requires, as you guys know, you have a lot of multifamily, requires analytics, but it also requires communication and outgoing personality, like an introvert with an extrovert. And those are some of the best partnerships I see in this business. So if you don't know what your strengths and weaknesses are, just ask your friends. They'll tell you what your weaknesses are for sure, but they'll also tell you what you're good at. Or you could do a Myers-Briggs profile, or Anthony Robbins has what's called a DISC profile, DISC profile. But here's the thing. Don't live someone else's life. Live your life, because when you're playing in your strengths, you're going to be passionate about it. And I don't know if you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about what I do because I freaking love it. And passion is required to influence people. In anything you're going to do, you're going to need to influence your relationships, your intimate relationship, your kids. Certainly anything in business requires passion to influence. And if you're loving what you do, it's effortless. And when you've got that passion and you love what you do, you never work another day in your life. Work is play. And your passion also relates to it's the fuel. It's the fuel that keeps you going if you're loving what you do. So discover what juices you and inspires you, and do that. And because again, that passion breeds creativity, it breeds innovation, and frankly minimizes or even eliminates fear. One of the last pieces here I want to talk about is peer group. Okay. When I was losing everything in 2008-9, I was at Anthony Robbins Platinum Partnership, Tony Robbins Platinum Partnership. It's about $130,000 all in back then. It's a lot more than that now. And I was around people that were freaking killing it in the crash, okay? And they were thriving. They were actually capitalizing on what was happening. And they're like, get up, you puss, 50 million schmillion, go make something happen, for God's sakes. Now, Is that who you want to be around when the shit hits the fan? You better freaking believe it. So pay attention to who you're hanging around with right now. Because I'm going to tell you, show me your 3 best friends. I'll show you who you are in every aspect of your life, your health, your wealth, and your happiness. All 3 of the pieces you guys focus on. And it relates to who you hang out with. So here's the sad reality. Most people default to people they went to school with or people they work with. And unfortunately, some of those people may have their own limiting beliefs or fear, and they will hold you back. And sometimes even because they love you, and sometimes it's your family. I'm going to tell you, love your family, but proactively choose your peers. Get around people that want more out of life, that are going to hold you accountable, that will praise you. Can I brag for a minute about my warrior group?
Absolutely.
So I have coaching students. They're called my warriors. And they own upwards over, I believe, 180,000 units right now. And I've only been teaching 5 years. That's something I'm super freaking proud of. But here's the thing. The reason it's so successful is they hold each other accountable. They praise each other. And we're seeing deals close almost every single day. But that's what you need to get around. You need to get in a group like that that's going to hold you to a higher standard. That thinks what you think is hard is easy. That's who you want to be around. Now, if you're interested in multifamily, you have an interest in what I do, you can text the word CRUSH to 72345, and that's how you apply to that program. It's CRUSH to 72345. But the bottom line is proactively seek out people that want you what you want, that aren't afraid of your success, that aren't going to, when you have a dream, initially it's a fragile thread, and it's very easy to break that thread. So you got to be very careful who you share your dreams with initially. And again, you want to get around people that think what you think is hard is easy. If you want to get better at tennis, do you want to play somebody better than you or worse than you? Right? You know the answer. Yeah. And so,
are you looking to invest in real estate but don't want the active responsibility of managing the properties? At Smart Asset Capital, we are a leading commercial real estate investment firm based in southeastern Wisconsin with a long history of delivering exceptional returns to our investors. We specialize in acquiring industrial properties that cash flow from day one with value-add levers for upside potential.
With Smart Asset Capital, you can gain access to the same deals that we're personally investing in. Receive cash flow in deals and upside potential, tax benefits, and be 100% passive in your investments. If you are looking to learn more about partnership opportunities with Smart Asset Capital, go to www.smartassetcapital.com to fill out the form and jump on a call with one of us to discuss. Disclaimer: this is for educational purposes only and should not be considered investment advice. Past performance is not a future indicator of results, and all investment decisions carry a level of risk. Please consult with a qualified investment advisor before making any investment decisions.
Anyway, the last piece here, or the second to the last piece, is problems and failure. Okay, I'm going to tell you, I don't call them failures, I call them seminars. And I got that from Tony Robbins. Got to give him credit. That's a great way to look at problems and failures, because honestly, it's only a failure if you don't get your butt back up or you don't get the lesson, right? And so, we literally fail our way to success. Problems are a gift. They're feedback. If you come to my boot camp, I've got a virtual boot camp coming up in January. I don't know when this will go live, but if you come within it's on a weekend, the day after the boot camp, you're going to get a survey from me. And of course, 99% of the stuff is positive, but I'm looking for the critical stuff so I can make it better, because we're always trying to make it better. And you should be as well. You should always try to make things better, leaving little micro improvements that you make in your life, in every aspect of your life. And you take those out a year, 2 years, 3 years, they become major shifts in your life. And so problems and they give you feedback. I'm going to tell you, the only people that don't have problems are dead. Okay, that's the bottom line. I got to meet the billionaire owner of Spanx, the ladies' undergarments that hold everything together, Sarah Blakely, beautiful human being, and at a mastermind we were at. And she told me that her dad used to ask her and her brother on a weekly basis, "What have you failed at this week?" And I thought, what an awesome freaking question to ask your kids so they don't fear failure. And, so if you got kids that are still listening to you, by God, I was too late for me to hear that. But if you've got them, I would absolutely ask that question, because there's nothing worse than regret. If you're going to fear anything, fear being in the same freaking place you are right now, 1 or 2 years from now, unless you love where you are right now. All right, I'm done I'm done pontificating here.
There's a lot there, man. That was golden.
That was gold.
I went kind of fast and I abbreviated, but you guys want to talk about some other stuff. But honestly, I think what I just said is more important than any of the technical stuff, any of the, the mechanics of doing this business. And, if you want to learn the mechanics for multifamily, get your butt to my boot camp. In fact, I'll just mention to this, I'll give you guys a hell of a deal if they want to come. Like for $97, they can come to my virtual boot camp, and I don't sell anything there. If you use the code WEALTH, you can come for $97. It'll be like $400 or $500 before then. But go to Rod's links or text links to 72345, and you'll see the boot camp site at the top. And if you want to see what hundreds of people have said, go to the bottom. You'll see hundreds of testimonials. But you can come for $97 if you use the code WEALTH when you check out. And if you don't freaking love it, I'll give you your $97 back. I don't mean like it. I mean freaking love it. I'll give you your money back. It's never happened, but there's a first time for everything.
In the show notes too. Yeah, I've gotten a ton of value from his events as a plug there.
Thank you.
I learned a lot of the mechanics of real estate syndication investing through your stuff.
Thanks.
I got a question, not to derail too much here, but how important do you think the 2024 election is for where the economy is going to go?
You really want to go there? I got to tell you, I have never seen such a shit show in my freaking life with what's happening right now in this country and what's happening with this administration. And if you hate that, then block me and tell me to fuck off online. I don't care. But you can't make some of this shit up that's happening in this country right now. And God help us if we don't have a change in administration. That's all I can tell you. I'm really worried for this country. It's that bad, in my opinion, between the wars, between the economy, between inflation and what's happening, the open southern borders, the frankly blatant fraud and how complicit some of these politicians are and how their net worth goes from 3 million to 300 million while they're in office. I mean, you just can't make this stuff up. And so I think it's critical. I think it's honestly, I think that the future of the United States is at risk at this point. And again, if you hate me for this, then that's fine. Just please block me because I'm very, very convicted in these beliefs. And I never used to be, man. I didn't pay attention to politics, but my eyes have been opened. And between the censorship on social media and on the news, it's so freaking obvious to anybody that pays attention to it. And I get hate for this all the time. I do a post occasionally. I try to keep it as soft as I can, but you asked. But I think it's critical. And I got to tell you, I do believe the rates are going to come down this year because I think they have to, unless they plan to steal the election. And we won't talk about the past, but you can imagine what I think about that. But unless they plan to steal it again, they have to drop the rates and try to improve this economy or I don't think they've got a prayer unless they steal the election again, in my opinion. But there you go. You asked, man. I wasn't going to go there, but you asked.
Hey, no, you're in good company.
You're in good company.
All right.
Podcast.
Yeah, I just scratch my head every freaking. I can't even barely watch the news anymore because it's so much obvious bullshit. It's like and what's scary is that so many people are believing it. That's the part that's just to me is. Intelligent people in my family that are PhDs buying this crap that's going on right now. And it's like, come on, you've got to start digging a little deeper. But here's the problem. When people take a stance on something, it's almost impossible to convince them that there's something else. And, sometimes I'll get into this little argument online, but I'm realizing it's a complete waste of time because they don't listen to you. So anyway.
Well, so how do you, on that, so with so much negative stuff in the news and going on in the world, right? Like, how do you maintain a positive outlook when it comes to investing, right? To look forward into the future of where the opportunity is going to be.
Opportunity is coming. I'm convinced. I mean, I got crushed by the wave in 2008 and 9. I'm surfing this one, brother. I mean, I'm in a lot of cash. I've got access to a lot of cash. Cash is king in a crisis. So conserve your cash if you're thinking about capitalizing. But here's the thing. You got to pick your vehicle right now. Those of you listening, you got to decide how you're going to capitalize on what's coming. Everything's going on sale. I'm certain of it. Businesses, there's a lot of baby boomers retiring. Even if the recession is mild, I think it's going to be significant. But even if it's mild, everything's going on sale. So you can buy businesses. You can buy other asset classes of real estate. You guys are doing industrial. I think that's a fantastic play with the whole Amazon dynamic. And so, multifamily, people need a place to live. They can't afford to buy right now. There's nothing going to hurt in multifamily. I would stay the hell away from office right now. and maybe forever, honestly. But retail still be careful with retail because of the Amazon dynamic. But, but you got to pick your vehicle and you got to learn it right now. If you're trying to learn it in the soup, it's going to be too late. You got to build connections. You got to know how to evaluate what it is you're looking at. If it's real estate, businesses, whatever it is, if it's multifamily, get your butt to my freaking boot camp. It's kind of a no-brainer, but pick something and go learn it as fast as you can, because you conserve cash, get as connected as you can, because you could literally create wealth for yourself, your kids, their kids, their kids, and their kids, and what's coming if you get up to speed and you're ready for it.
I love it. So let's unpack that a little bit. I mean, you did touch on multifamily and people needing a place to live, and the prices are generally pretty high for, and there's a lot of demand and not that much supply for single family houses. Someone that wants to go buy a house and then they tend to rent. But what about your sort of outlook on multifamily? I mean, does that kind of sum it up, or do you have any?
No, there's more. There's more. And I love multifamily. We've become a renter nation. I mean, when in the 2008 and 9 crash, multifamily rents exceeded pre-crash levels in less than 3 years. And that was a big freaking crash, okay? They exceeded pre-crash levels in less than 3 years. So very resilient. When COVID hit, office, industrial, retail, self-storage, they didn't get any help. We got hundreds of thousands of dollars in rent relief because people have to have a place to live. And so, I'm very, very bullish on multifamily. And obviously, the reason I lost everything in 2008 and 9 was because of the single family. If I had not cross-collateralized my single families with packages of houses with my multifamily, I'd still own those apartment complexes. They only pulled back about 11%. They could have easily survived. But, in my infinite wisdom, to save 50 basis points or 0.5% interest, I'd refinance and put packages of houses with the multifamily. So the whole thing imploded. But, that's the reason I started my podcast 7 years ago, was just to say, hey, if you're going to buy and hold, for God's sakes, do multifamily. Don't do single family, because it's just safer. It's more economically feasible. It's easier to scale, and on and on and on. So, I'm bullish on multifamily. I always will be. I would be careful with C class right now, though. C or D for sure. D, stay away from D. Again, ask me how I know. So one of my students got me a T-shirt that says #ask me how I know, because I made every freaking mistake you can possibly make. I didn't have mentors in sing, and so I'll say, don't do that. Ask me how I know. So now we give away the T-shirt, say, ask me how I know. But don't do D class. We don't have to go down that path unless you want to. Why? But C class is even challenging, in my opinion, because that demographic's getting killed right now. I'm recently single, okay? And so I'm grocery shopping now. And the first time I went to the grocery store, I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? That was $150. I'm like, how do people afford this? And the clerk just shook her head and said, and then gas. Fill up my truck is like $120. I'm like, how do people live? It's just insane. And I don't think it's going to get better. And they're talking like it's 3-4% bull. Okay, it's higher than that. And I think it's going to stay higher than that. And that's why, the beautiful thing about real estate is it's such a big hedge against inflation, because, you're locking in the debt. And so, any inflation is going to increase the value, but it's not going to increase your debt amount. But again, why do I feel like there's going to be a reckoning? Because there was a lot of greed these last few years. Warren Buffett's famous quote, be fearful when others are greedy, be greedy when others are fearful. Well, the fear is coming back now, okay? But there was a lot of greed. So operators were using, adjustable rate bridge debt to make deals happen, because they got higher loan to value in many cases. And the less money invested in a deal, the less equity in a deal, the higher the returns. And so they'd use bridge debt when Fannie and Freddie were at 60% or 70% loan to value. You could still get bridge debt at higher than that. And a lot of and bridge wasn't set up for that. Bridge is really to bridge the gap between a non-performing asset and a performing asset. So it was kind of abused. And the problem with bridge debt is it's short-term, 1 to 3 years, sometimes a couple of additional extensions after that, but it's adjustable rate. And guys are getting killed, myself included. My ex-partner got me in a couple of bridge loans, and I wasn't paying attention. And so he's dealing with it. But I mean, you're seeing some big operators that are in trouble right now. They got this onerous debt and they can't pull out of it. And so, and I hate it for them. I went through it. They'll live. I lived, but I see incredible opportunity in these deals. Like the deal I'm buying, the guy ran out of money and and it's just a screaming deal. It's a 200 unit, a mile and a half away from a 296 unit I already own. That's one of my best assets, killing it. And these units are nicer. They're on a lake, and I'm getting them for $100,000 a door. And the property right next door sold for $137 a door. It's no different than this one. Another one sold for $127 a door. It's on a lake on one side, golf course on the other. I mean, I'm just ecstatic about this freaking deal. Literally, it's going under contract right now. But I'm bullish on multifamily. That was a long answer to your question.
Do you have there's a lot there, and a couple things. Our first syndication ever was a 89 unit, what I would consider a D-class apartment, and we felt a lot of the pain that you speak of as well. So we got out of that deal. Our investors, made some money. We got their money back, but that was that one kept us up at night. Many nights.
I had a 403 unit asset in Shreveport, Louisiana. 403 units. I thought it was a C asset. It was actually a C-D asset. That took years off my life. When I took it. I had a partner that sold us on this deal, and he had a management company. It took me 8 months to get his damn management company out of there. When I went in there, it was grossing less than $100,000 a month. This is 403 units. Okay, I got it up to almost 300, and we sold it. Thank God before this interest rate stuff started happening. But I don't even want to fly over Shreveport airspace anymore.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't even go in that general vicinity. I can't even think about it.
Yeah. I got one. So risk management. Oftentimes, we just did a deep dive on Sam Zell. He talks about how important it is to assess risk, right? Protect your downside. How do you approach risk mitigation, right? When you're looking at a deal, how do you approach mitigating risk?
Great question. Well, raise a lot of money. I mean, we're doing a minimum 6 months expenses that operate as operating reserves on our CapEx budget. We've got $400,000 just in case contingency. Okay, on this, but I'm just speaking to this asset we're doing right now, and just very conservative on our numbers. Very conservative. I've got a team that is so conservative. I haven't bought a deal in over a year. Okay, this is the first deal in over a year that we're buying because I've been so conservative. And listen. I lost $50 million. Hit me once, shame on you. Hit me twice, it's my own damn fault, okay? So I'm not going to let you hit me twice. The economy hit me twice. So we're super conservative. This particular deal, we're assuming low interest debt, 4%, still got 7 years left on it. That's a pretty safe cushion. So, it checks off all the boxes. I mean, again, just as this example. By the way, if you're listening and you're accredited and you want to check it out, text the word partner to 72345. Or I've got a fantastic resource. We created this cash flow club. It's free, and we're not going to try to sell you anything or even try to push you into our deals, but it has so many free resources. It's called, I'm giving you way too much stuff here, probably making your eyes cross. But it's called the CRECashflowClub.com, CREE CashflowClub.com. If you're accredited, or even if you just want to invest passively, text the word club to 72345 and check it out. There's videos, there's free books, there's articles, there's emails. It's loaded with information, monthly webinars on different aspects. It's just a great resource to learn, this business before you invest passively. So many people will make money and they'll give it to somebody without it doing any homework on what they're doing. Like stock market is a great example. Give it to a stockbroker who is a great salesman but hasn't got a clue about what's really going on. It's the same way, unfortunately, in real estate. So do your homework, for God's sakes. If you're going to invest passively, have some basic understanding of what you're investing in. Better yet, come to my boot camp, frankly, even if you're going to invest passively. But don't be lazy with the hard-earned money that you worked for all your life, because there are people losing it right now in my space. And certainly I think there's a stock market correction coming like nobody's ever seen, but we'll see. We'll see.
What about, go ahead.
I was going to ask, do you have can you talk through your sort of do you have a value add strategy or value add plan?
Oh, sure. Always. That's all we do is value add. Yeah. So we're looking, and so what does he mean by that? If you don't know what that means, see, the beautiful thing about commercial real estate is the value is based on a multiple of the net income. It's called the net operating income, NOI. That's the most important number that you're looking at. And any improvement to that net income is an exponential improvement to the value. I'll give you an example. That 296 unit in San Antonio, that's a mile and a half away from the one we're buying. We numbered the parking spaces, okay? And we told the tenants, hey, for $25 a month, you can have a spot right in front of your apartment. 100 people took it. That was an $800,000 $1,000 increase in value from painting some freaking numbers on parking spaces. Okay. That's why we love this business. And so, you want to look for opportunities to increase rents or decrease expenses, or typically both, and improve that net income. And you do that through improvements that you make. We've got almost a $4 million CapEx budget on this particular 200 unit we're buying. We're putting a lot of money into it. Because we're going to upgrade it in a big way. And we're going to be able to charge, really good rents for it and increase that net income. I'll give you another example of an exponential increase in value. I have a 101 unit asset in Dayton, Ohio. It's actually in Beaver Creek, Ohio, which is a rich suburb of Dayton. And like a few months after we bought it, it got destroyed by a tornado. And I mean, wiped out. Thank God nobody died. A couple of people had to have surgery. Thank God no kids got hurt. But we rebuilt it. And we got $650 rent increases on that 101 units. That was a $12 million increase in value on 101 units, guys. That's why, well, you guys know this, but for those of you listening, that's why we love this freaking business. So that's called value add. Now, of course, that's an extreme example. I mean, you're not going to do that every day, but that's what this business, that's why we love this business. If you buy single family or even fourplexes, duplex, triplex, fourplex, that's residential real estate, you're locked into what comparable sales sold for. So you can't do what I'm talking about here because they're not based on income. If you can buy commercial that's based on income, then you can force appreciation. That's what we're talking about here, is forcing appreciation.
Absolutely.
How important is so of course you can look at the numbers, learn the numbers, how to identify a value add plan. This might be partly a mistake we made on our beginning deals, but you have a property management company, but how important is it to have an understanding of operations, of overseeing that property management, right?
It's called asset management. I've got an incredible resource about asset management. It's a book about 2 inches thick. I don't know if I've got it here it'd probably take me a minute to find it on the floor. But listen, if you go to Rod's links or text the word links to 72345, all my social media is there. And if you DM me on any social channel and ask for the asset management book, I'll send it to you. I don't know if there's a bunch of free books already in there. I don't know if the asset management book is in there, but it's critical. Some people think you buy an asset, you give it to a third-party property management company, and you're like at the rodeo where you rope the calf and throw your hands up, you're done. No. That's when the work really starts. You have to have the weekly calls with your property management company, and you have to manage what's called KPIs, key performance indicators. And you're measuring all the time what's happening with this asset. And so, asset management's critical. And did I answer your question or?
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
So, breaking down sort of your business, you've got your multifamily portfolio, and then you've got a coaching business. Like, are you in other businesses, or how do you look at?
That's a great question. Now, I don't call businesses failures. I call them seminars. So I have built 27 businesses, several worth tens of millions of dollars. The two you just mentioned are worth tens of millions of dollars, but most were spectacular flaming seminars. Okay. And I've had tons of failure. We fail our way to success, like the Sarah Blakely example. Those are the only two things I'm in right now. I would love to buy businesses. I love businesses. I love everything about entrepreneurship and building and managing and ramping businesses. But there's only one of me to go around. So I am talking to somebody about maybe to start doing a little bit of the soapbox stuff that I do right now for me and really build it into a brand, because the brand is all me right now. And so it's not saleable. I'm basically self-employed. And so I'm working on that right now to incorporate some other people to help me train. I use my students to help train a lot. I mean, I've got tons of successful students. So that's going really well, but I'm probably going to hire somebody to do that, because I'd like to buy more. I'd like to spend more time on acquisitions and possibly go into some other things like other asset classes like you guys are doing, or businesses, because I just love it. And that's what I enjoy doing. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Out of genuine curiosity, have you ever looked at launching a fund instead of doing deal by deal syndications?
Right now, that asset that we're doing is actually going into a fund. We're doing it. It looks like a single asset fund right now, but until we have other assets, we're not going to even bring up the fact that it's a fund, but it is a fund. And we're not even bringing up the fact that the money is going into an interest-bearing account, 4 or 5% interest while the money is sitting there before the deal closes. And I think we're doing that on here. I'm fairly certain we're doing that. In fact, I know we are. We're putting the money in there, so forth. And the other thing is, it's going to a bank that spreads it out over 80 banks that never exceeds 250,000 in each bank. Okay, it's this sweeping thing. So it's covered by the FDIC, so the money is completely secure while it's in the fund before it gets placed. But that'll confuse people right now because there's only the one asset in there. But once, we start putting some other assets in there, we'll bring more attention to the fact that it's really a fund and they can delineate where they want their money placed. But again, the beautiful thing about it is it's actually earning interest while it's in the fund, and it's under the FDIC limit, which is really cool.
So if you've been listening to the podcast, you've probably heard us talk about this syndication model. We've talked about it a lot. And it's what we do at our business with Smart Asset Capital and has allowed us to grow into where we are today. My story, I got started in real estate about 5 years ago. Started with a duplex and was struggling to find where to go next. How was I going to scale quicker? How was I going to get out of my job and build a business? Long story short, I landed on syndication. And 1 year after buying that duplex, I syndicated an 89-unit apartment building. Fast forward 10 syndication deals later, I decided to launch a one-on-one mentor program where I work directly with people that already have experience in real estate and want to get into syndication. So if you want to learn more about how you can work with me directly to get into your first syndication deal, go to www.cresyndicator.io, click on the Learn More link, and that'll have you fill out a form to book a call directly with me. Thanks.
Yeah, we just we're doing our first multi-asset fund. We've done 13 or so syndications,
nice.
A few JVs beyond that too. But we as we look at our portfolio, particularly with industrial, because you don't have as much diversification, right? So you have we have some single tenant assets, right? Mm-hmm. And someone moves out, right? That poses some risk. But we can buy these deals, either in sale leasebacks, we can get really favorable, kind of engineer the deals to be really favorable for cash flow, long-term predictable cash flow. But as we looked at it, it was like, if we do this, with 5 different assets in it, it's gonna greatly reduce the risk and still what we think is be able to let us optimize returns for our investors.
Oh, there's no question. And it'll minimize the risk for sure. Especially in what you're doing, because you're right. I mean, you if you have a single tenant asset and that tenant leaves or dies or gets sick, you got a problem for that particular asset. But if you've got it in a fund, the other ones will help support it. I think it's a brilliant strategy, guys. I wish you luck with it. I think it's a great idea for that asset class for sure.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. I think maybe we wrap up with this closing question here, and it's a big question. But what is your definition of wealth?
I have a sign. Oh, it's downstairs in my exercise room. It says, God's wealth flows through me in avalanches of abundance. Thank you, God. And that wealth is not just money. That wealth is friendships. That wealth is love. That wealth is, I'll tell you a quick story. And you've heard it, Brock, because I talk about it at my boot camp. I worked for 20 years to build a house on the beach, or build a mansion on the beach, 10,000 square foot mansion on the beach. It's right across the bay here from me, because God's got a sense of humor, because I lost it in all the craziness. But it's 10,000 square feet out on the beach. I owned, past tense, owned the beach on one side, and I had my boats on the backside. It's called a Gulf to Bay. I mean, this house is spectacular. Giant waterfall from the second floor balcony into the pool. Pool was in magazines. It was spectacular. Big spiral staircase up through the middle of the house. Wine cellar, elevators. On the second floor, I had aquariums built around the staircase that cost me almost $200,000. So this gives you an idea of the house. Well, I worked for it for 20 years. 2 months after I moved in, I'm floating in the pool at night. My family's inside sleeping, and I'm looking up at this testament to my ego, which is really what it was. It was to prove to the world I was good enough. I asked that question, how can I show them I'm good enough? It was to prove it. I'm like, if that doesn't fucking prove it, then what will, right? But I got depressed. And this is 2 months after I moved in. I mean, I got really depressed in the pool. I'm like, what the hell? And when I look back on it, there were several things going on. One was, you should never achieve a big goal without having other goals lined up behind it. Like the good book says, without a vision, the people perish. You need a vision for your future. I didn't know what I was going to do next. I was like, how can I top this, right? Second thing was, It's never about the goals. Happiness comes from progress and growth. And if you go do my goal setting workshop, at the end of it, I do a weekly planning process that's super powerful. It's how I manage these 2 large companies at the same time by focusing on what's most important. And one of the pieces in that is to celebrate any progress that you did on a weekly basis, because that's how you remain happy. Because you're going to have setbacks, you're going to have delays, but if you're acknowledging your progress, you'll be happy. So that's the second piece. But the third piece was I was totally focused on Rod. How can I show them I'm good enough? How can I show them I matter? Rod, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that's the year I met Tony Robbins. This is 23 years ago. And I went to his event, and I would highly recommend him, by the way. I spent 20 years following him around the planet. I was on his team for 8 years. He's had a huge impact on my life. But I found out that he fed families for the holidays. And I'm like, what a concept. Do something for someone else. I'm embarrassed to say I had to be, 40 to get that memo. Well, in the last 23 years, I have fed upwards of 150,000 children here in Sarasota and Bradenton. I'm feeding about 4,000 or 5,000 on Saturday, this coming Saturday, okay? I've done thousands of backpacks filled with school supplies. We did 1,700 in August of this year. I've done thousands of teddy bears to local police departments for their officers to keep in a vehicle if they encounter a child that's been in a traumatic situation. Now, I'm not saying this to brag, but I'm going to tell you, a lot of people think that you have to succeed to be happy. And we were taught that way, like happiness should be after you succeed. I'm going to tell you, when you give back, we should achieve to be happy. This is Tony Robbins' quote here, exactly, like achieve to be happy. When you give back, you're happily achieving, okay? And I know it's a play on words, but it's an important one. Tony Robbins calls it the science of achievement versus the art of fulfillment. Achievement's a science. You want to learn multifamily? Get your ass to my boot camp. You'll get it. I'll give you the blueprint and the map. You just got to go do it. That's a science. But fulfillment is an art. You got to find out what juices you. And for me, it's kids. Maybe for you, it's animals or the environment or the elderly, whatever it is, give back right now. And don't say, yeah, you had money, that's why you do it. If you want the money, go do it, because the money comes faster. That's the way God or the universe works. Whatever you give back tenfold. That's true wealth, by giving back and doing it immediately. And I will tell you, we did a Hall of Fame for some of my warriors at my last 2 events, my Denver event, my Orlando event, where we picked these exemplary warriors, not just because of their success, but also because of how much they help other warriors and give back. And we did a PowerPoint slide for each warrior as we brought them up. It's been about 30 between the 2 events. And I started to notice a pattern. Every single one of them gives back in a big way. Veterans homelessness, veterans suicide, sexual trafficking, building schools in India, on and on and on. I'm like, I pointed to the 1,000 people in the crowd. I said, hey, that's what we call a freaking clue, okay? Every one of these super successful people gives back. So take that as you will, but that's the sign of true wealth. When you give back and you're fulfilled, that's a freaking life.
That's a mic drop right there.
That was good.
This whole thing has been great. There's been a ton here. The energy is incredible, Rod.
Thank you.
You clearly do a lot of things. I don't know if we got to it today, but clearly keep yourself in a state of great health, because you're able to show up with this.
I've got an
energy.
exercise room down here to blow your mind. It's my pride and joy, actually. It really would blow your mind. But anyway, yeah.
I love it. We're both big into working out too. I think that's Thanks. A key integral part of
No question. No question. I have a vegetable shake every day. I just finished it. I mean, health is wealth. No question.
Absolutely.
All right. So lastly, I know we'll drop all those links you mentioned throughout the pods. People can connect with you and attend your events. Where can people follow you along? The
best thing is rodslinks.com. Honestly, go to Rod's Links or text the word links to 72345. Everything is there. But bootcamp site, the goal setting workshop, free books, all my social media. If you ask me a question on social, I answer every single question. And they're like, is this really you? And I got to do a picture of my freaking underwear. Yeah. Hey, it's me, but I answer every question there. So feel free to ask. And yeah. So go there. And again, remember the code WEALTH when you check out for that $97 price on the boot camp if you decide you want to come. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Really appreciate
you,
man.
Thank you so much, Rod. We really appreciate you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thank you. All right. Well, that's a wrap. We just had Rod Khleif, and let me tell you, this dude was on fire today. He even said it. He had an extra level of energy and enthusiasm. He's always pretty fired up, but this was a special one. Thank you guys so much for listening. He talked today about mindset, limiting beliefs, such as, if you're in debt, how do you not think about things as like, how do I get out of debt, but how do I make so much friggin' money that the debt doesn't matter and that gets wiped away. He talked about goal setting and having a plan. And then after you have that plan put in place, to commit and burn the boats. We've talked about that one before. He brought up Warren Buffett. I think Warren gets brought up every single time we do an episode of Winning Wealth here. And lastly, he talked about some education and risk mitigation. There's a lot of great resources that he provided. And thanks so much for listening. Smash that like and subscribe button for us and share with your friends.